All right, let's just dive right into this explainer and demystify the absolute beast that is the Microsoft Certified Agentic AI Business Solutions Architect exam, or, the AB 100 for short. If you're trying to figure out exactly what it takes to actually govern and architect the future of enterprise AI, well, you are in the perfect place. We're going to unpack the whole shebang, everything you need to know to tackle this really rigorous certification. So here is our blueprint for today. We're going to quickly hit the AB 100 exam reality, dig into the exam structure and mechanics, explore the AI architect mindset, cover governance, security, and ALM, and then wrap up with a quick reality check on whether this exam is actually the right move for you. All right, Section 1, the AB 100 exam reality, facing the beast. To start things off, we really just need to acknowledge exactly what kind of monster we are dealing with here.
Look, this is a hardcore expert-level certification. You literally can't just walk in off the street to take this. You actually have to already hold a specific associate-level prerequisite, like Azure AI Engineer or Power Platform Developer, just to be allowed in the room. And to make things even trickier, there is no straightforward step-by-step prep path on Microsoft Learn. Microsoft is not holding your hand here. You really have to rely on your own real-world experience, deep-dive white papers, and a lot of scenario-based training to get ready.
I found this quote from a recent test taker absolutely brilliant. They said, "This exam exactly tests the strategy, not the syntax." And that really hits the nail on the head. You are not going to be writing code. Nobody cares if you memorized a specific Python script. Instead, you're going to be staring down 4 incredibly good-looking architectural options, and you have to pick the absolute best one. It is all about high-level, strategic decision-making.
Moving on to Section 2, exam structure and mechanics. Time, scores, and weights. Now, what's really fascinating here is how the seemingly rigid mechanics of the test actually give away exactly what Microsoft values most in an AI architect. So, 100. That is your magic number. You've got exactly 100 minutes to power through roughly 56 questions, and you're shooting for a minimum passing score of 700 out of 1,000. Be prepared for a mix of direct questions, some heavy case studies where you're thrown into a fictitious company's messy problems, and those tricky drag-and-drop architectural puzzles. But think about these domain weights for a second. This is wild. Nearly half the exam, we're talking 40 to 45%, is heavily skewed toward deployment, operations, monitoring, and testing. That alone proves this is definitely not just a let's build a cool bot exam. It is an operations and security exam straight up. Planning and designing just split the rest of the pie. Oh, and a quick, absolutely crucial warning before we move on. Beware of the unreviewable hotspot questions. You are almost guaranteed to face a scenario that asks you point blank, does the solution really meet the goal? And here is the kicker. Once you answer yes or no to these little traps, you can never go back. You can't review them later, so read the scenarios slowly, find the keywords, and really take your time.
All right, Section 3, the AI architect mindset. Strategy over syntax. Let's look at how the test structure we just talked about actually forces a massive shift in how you need to think about AI projects. Listen, if you go into this test with a pure developer mindset, just obsessing over how to build the agent, what's the syntax, making a single-use tool, you are going to fail, for sure. You have got to make the leap to the architect mindset. You need to be asking, why are we building this? How do we govern it across the whole enterprise? And what is the actual measurable business value? This shift is beautifully laid out in the Cloud Adoption Framework for AI. Now, a super high-frequency trap on the exam is seeing a scenario where an eager company jumps straight to the adopt phase before they ever bother finishing the ready phase. Let me be 100% clear. If you deploy an agent on unlabeled, totally ungoverned data, it is a guaranteed operational nightmare. Sure, the agent might technically work, but it's going to start pulling sensitive documents across permission boundaries and cause a massive compliance disaster.
The same logic applies to your Center of Excellence, or COE. Your strategy has to evolve over time. Look at what happens if you get stuck in that established stage for too long. If you keep a centralized COE as the only way things get delivered, you're going to create massive, 6-week-long backlogs. And what happens then? Business units get impatient and just start building shadow AI projects to bypass the bottleneck. A real architect knows exactly when it's time to transition that governance and let the business unit scale.
And part of being that architect is knowing how to measure actual business value. Look, in the real world, we might roll our eyes at the whole industry benchmark trap. Executives blindly approving huge budgets because some generic white paper promised a 60% productivity boost. But on the AB 100, a valid ROI model strictly demands hard data.
You absolutely must have a measured baseline, a 3-band projection to show the real risk envelope, and a total cost of ownership that bakes in the ongoing post-deployment monitoring costs.
For scenario questions, you're constantly going to be juggling whether to buy, extend, or build. Here is your cheat code. Always default to extending Microsoft 365 or using Copilot Studio for standard productivity stuff and citizen developers. You really only escalate to customizing Azure AI Foundry or building a completely custom solution when you are backed into a corner by strict data-level compliance rules like FDA or HIPAA regulations, where external vendors absolutely cannot touch the data.
Okay, Section 4, Governance, Security, and ALM, the 40 to 45% heavyweight. Let's dive into the meatiest part of the exam, where you really have to prove you can keep the enterprise locked down while still pushing innovation.
This exam fully expects you to be best friends with Application Lifecycle Management, or ALM. This isn't just about casually pushing code to production. It's about stepping up and thinking like a true enterprise architect who has to juggle ALM for Copilot Studio agents, Dynamics 365 apps, and custom Foundry models all at the exact same time. You've got to understand how to package these solutions, keep version control tight, and enforce quality gates everywhere.
And honestly, your ALM strategy is pretty much useless without these core security imperatives. You're going to be heavily grilled on picking the exact right governance controls. You need to know exactly when to deploy Microsoft Purview versus Azure Policy to stop data oversharing. You've got to know how to lock in audit trails, guarantee data residency, and, this is a huge one right now, specifically how to shield your models from prompt injection attacks.
Finally, Section 5. Is this exam for you? A reality check. So the big question we really need to answer before we wrap up is whether you are actually the right candidate to drop your hard-earned time and money on this beast of a test.
If you're already out there leading massive digital transformations, setting up ALM strategies, or driving huge enterprise CRM implementations that are pivoting to AI, then yes, this exam is absolutely for you. It is the perfect way to validate your strategic positioning and prove to everyone that you know how to safely govern AI at a massive scale.
On the flip side, if you are a beginner, if you've literally never operated within a complex enterprise IT environment, or if you're a coder who just wants to flex their syntax skills, honestly, take a breather. Save yourself the headache and the frustration. This exam will feel incredibly overwhelming. Go build up your foundational Copilot and Azure experience first, get some reps in, and then come back and tackle this later.
Which brings us to our final thought. The future of business isn't just about eagerly throwing chatbots at a wall to see what sticks. It's agenteric, it is heavily governed, and it is measured entirely by true bottom-line business impact. So, the question is, are you content just building AI, or are you actually ready to step up and govern the future of the enterprise?